Hey everybody, it's Norm Duvet with Copa Health once again. This is our third out of four webinars during Mental Health Awareness Month, our 31 Days of Healing, as we call it at Copa Health. And we've got a great group tonight. For those of you who joined us for the first week, Stop the Stigma, that is out on the YouTube and out online right now. Also, those who joined us last week for Navigating the Mental Health System in Arizona and the United States, that's out there also. And next week, we have a subject that is just so important to so many people. Caring for the caregiver. So often people are caring for others, whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's a mental health ailment, and they don't take care of themselves enough. So we're looking forward to that. If anybody's interested in joining us for that, go out to copahealth.org/resources and register for that webinar. But tonight is a fantastic one because it's all about uplifting and energizing and supporting both young people and people of all ages, but especially young people with some of the panelists that we have tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelists. First, we've got a good friend of Copa Health, Dr. Paula McCall. Paula, how are you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to Paula earlier, I'm in Wichita, Kansas right now. That's why I'm a little bit casual. I got here just a little bit late, so I decided instead of trying to clean myself up too much, I would just put on a hat and hopefully not embarrass myself. But hey, Paul, why don't you just mention to everybody a little bit about Semicolon Society and your role in founding that?
Yeah, so I'm Paula McCall. I'm a licensed psychologist, nationally certified school psychologist, and also a founder and president of Semicolon Society. Semicolon Society is a nonprofit housed in Arizona. The semicolon is a symbol of suicide prevention and personal mental health wellness because in grammar, the semicolon continues rather than ends a sentence. So it really symbolizes the idea of continuing onward and continuing forward. So Semicolon Society was named after that. Its roots are all in suicide prevention. So, really reducing stigma, building conversations, empowering people with information and knowledge on how to address suicide and how to build mental wellness in general.
Oh, wonderful. And it's just so glad that I'm just so glad that you're able to join us again tonight. Next, we've got Jason Demers, and Jason is a former NHL hockey player and the founder of FYP Athletics. And I think he also has to get a license in counseling because many of us in Arizona um, had a serious mental health issue when the Coyotes, left us and went up to Utah. Jason, how are you doing tonight?
Still sad that the Coyotes left, but happy to be here and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about what we're going to do with all of our Coyotes stuff, our jerseys and our shirts, and she did the best Coyote howl I've ever heard of anybody. So whenever we're at the games, that's the one thing that impressed me so much. But Jason, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about FYP Athletics?
Yeah, quick backstory on me. I played 13 years professional hockey and retired 2 years ago, and now I'm in the TV space. But I dealt with a lot of performance anxiety dating back to when I was a teenager. And, I kind of fell into breath work when I retired. Right around the time that I retired, I fell into breath work and journaling as a tool to help me deal with that performance anxiety because it really kind of kept going up and up and up as I played longer and longer. So, when I retired, like I said, I got into breath work and I had an epiphany to I wanted to bring this to young kids and teach them and give them tools so they didn't ever have to feel as anxious and not the best version of myself as I could possibly be. So I started building this platform 2 years ago, and we just launched in the youth golf space, and we eventually want to get into every sport and as many schools as possible and just teach kids about the value of journaling and breath work and moving their emotions and understanding their emotions so that they can be masters of adversity and really become, to your point, Norm, at the start of this, the best version of them, and that's the important thing for me.
I love that. Sharing your experience, passing it on, and then paying it forward. I really love that. Now, we've had other athletes on the podcast or on our webinars in the past, some former NHL guys. In fact, we had a former Washington professional football player on a couple weeks ago. But Randy, one of the things that we don't have on a regular basis are people that are associated with rock stars. And uh, we've known you for a while, and you do great things with the Alice Cooper Solid Rock Teen Centers. And I just want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about what I thought was just two centers and, your great news about Glendale just a little bit and the main focus of the centers that you work for.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. At Alice Cooper Solid Rock, we are 30 years old as a nonprofit this year. And our goal is to keep kids in a safe space after school and to give them a really amazing, relevant place that they can meet friends, build socialization, get mentorship, and within that, discover their passions. So we have a free recording studio and an opportunity for them to get music lessons, and they can take dance lessons, they can do art, they can just kind of hang out in a safe space. And we have 3 locations in Phoenix, Mesa, and Goodyear, and we serve all teens ages 12 to 20. It doesn't matter who they are, as long as they're 12 to 20, they're welcome.
Well, two things about that. First of all, I've been to the Mesa space and to the North Phoenix space, and they're just the coolest places. And second of all, I was actually born on February 29th, so kind of I'm just a teenager, so I'm 15. So, maybe I can come in. No, we're not going to go
I
there.
just tell people, Norm, get a fake ID, and if you're 15 on your ID, you're welcome in the building.
All right. Well, thank you. So, Aaron Callahan, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because a couple weeks ago when we were together and I met your mom and your dad, and we had some great conversations when you were doing the TV interview. We talked a little bit about Beneath the Brave, and I want you to share with everybody a little bit about Beneath the Brave. But also, I want to let you know I'm in awe of anybody who writes a book, and I'm just so impressed that anybody's able to do that. But knowing a little bit more about your experience, I'm even more impressed. So, can you just let everybody know a little bit about Beneath the Brave and what activities you've been up to?
Absolutely. Well, a huge, huge thank you to you and Copa Health for bringing me into this conversation with so many other leaders in this space. I started Beneath the Brave as a way to, in many ways, kind of merge my personal and professional experience. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder back when I was 17 years old. And so, early on, I really remember how isolating and ashamed I felt, and feeling as though that death sentence of having a mental illness would sort of follow me forever. And I worried about what that meant for my future. And so as I learned to manage my recovery and very proudly accept help down the road, in the professional space, I really felt drawn to creating a company that provided resources and skills and tools so that we could strip down those messages that tell people and professionals and youth that you got to put on the brave face. Fake it till you make it, keep trucking, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, we're all dealing with something. And so I really sort of just got tired of that pressure to perform and the pressure to put on that brave face, whether it was in my personal or my professional life. And so in Beneath the Brave, my work is really centered around empowering people to utilize and learn skills and techniques, not only to recognize maybe their own mental health struggles, but how to show up for other people, specifically in the workplace, and create workplace cultures where it's okay to ask for help when we need it. When we've got the courage to take off that brave face, that's where healing comes in. That's empowerment right there. And there's a whole community of us, here on this call today that have taken off that brave face and are showing up in really authentic ways.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I think if I wouldn't get myself in trouble with a lot of people that I care about, I would start a company called Mantras Are Us, and I would just keep stealing things from people like all of you and other people that been part of the different efforts we've had. Because some of you just come up with these little gems that I think, oh, if I only had heard that when I was, in high school. So, Paula, Dr. McCall, Paula, tell me a little bit how you see how teens look at mental health awareness.
So, well, I do want to caveat that question first of all, with the best way to know how teens look at something is to ask the teens themselves. None of us are teenagers on this call, but many of us do work with youth. So, I mean, really, I'm inquisitive and curious, and I try to open up plenty of conversations with the youth that I work with, whether through the nonprofit or professionally, or even in my own household with two of them. So I can only speak from what I've learned from them. But as far as how they, kind of look at mental health awareness, I mean, here's the thing is that everyone's experiencing something. And like Aaron said, right? And I mean, the biggest thing is that people, especially our youth, are oftentimes are open to having conversations. But the problem, the challenge that they run into is us as adults not doing that well, putting up walls, putting up barriers. So what I hear from our youth over and over again is, I just want people to listen to me. I just want people to stop telling me what the solution is, because I would do it if it was that easy. I just want people, to stop minimizing. I want people to validate me. So I think, our youth are experiencing things, of course, and we see rates high for depression, anxiety, suicidality. But many of them are open to holding true, authentic conversations about it if we just ask the questions and then shut up and listen.
Yeah, and shutting up and listening sometimes is a hard part when you are dealing with teens, especially because often they're not very loquacious. That's the period in people's lives when they kind of just shut down when they're around, people that are adults. Speaking of that, Jason, I want to ask you, just hopping off that a little bit. If you were able to go back to the 2002, 2003 version of yourself, because I think you came into the league, what, in 2008 or so? But if you were able to go back to that person and start sharing some of the wisdom that you have now, or some of the things that you've learned in the process of trying to make sure that kids are being the best that they can be and they're getting supported the way they can, what would you say to Jason back in 2002 or three? And I know that's a silly question. I'm not going to ask you what kind of tree you would be, but I'll ask you that.
It's difficult because, to explain to a kid to be present, because, we talk about high performing athletes and professional athletes. And the big thing is always, the ones that are most present seem to be the ones that succeed the most. And a lot of the times, most athletes couldn't explain to you if you asked them, how do you be present? They just innately do it. And it's something that they were born to, or they stumbled upon. And when I went back, I never understood how to be present. I just understood that this is what I did in my routine when I felt really good, and this would allow me to kind of have this little crutch that if I did everything exactly this way, I would have a good game. And it becomes it almost becomes a barrier that you can't get past, because if you don't seem to do your routine in that exact method or way, you're in trouble, or you're not going to play a game, or you're going to get hurt. So for me, it was just, going back to my younger self is it's okay to have those feelings, but just to recognize them and then realize that it's just for a moment, and it's not something that is going to kill you. It's something that you just need to understand and work with. And for me, it just, my whole thing was, before a game, I would think of every possible negative outcome, and a lot of the times it worked out well. I had 13-year career, but I played a lot of those games in a state of fear and in a state of, we use the term at FYP, a state of flow. We want to get into the flow, because for me, the way I constitute being present is like, we're on a river in a boat, and when the water gets choppy, you're not really thinking of just being present. You're worrying about the choppy water, and we try to guide ourselves into that calm stream, and not necessarily that it's calm, but it's just into a state of flow where it's not choppy, and you're not thinking of all these things, and your mind's not racing. So it's just something that I would go back to try to explain to my younger self. But to Paula's point, is talking about my feelings as well, and getting them out. And that's why we created this journaling portion of the platform that is voice to text, and kids are allowed to talk about their day and just get it out and get that energy out, and recognize it from there.
I love that, but I'll come back to it in a little bit. But I think in a little bit, I want to ask you about failure as a lesson, because I think a lot of great lessons come out of failure. And I imagine a lot of professional athletes or athletes even in college or, any elite level, they have to deal with that. But before we do that, Randy, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a subject that we talked about 2 weeks ago on this webinar, stigma. And what do you see as the stigmas in your work, the mental health stigmas that you have? And what do you do about it, especially with kids coming in who might be a little bit more shy or a little bit unsure of themselves?
Yeah, well, I think the stigma is different for every kid, of course, but the large majority of them just want to be acknowledged. And there's a lot of kids that, we serve all teens. It doesn't matter if they're affluent or homeless or foster kids or Jewish or Muslim. Every teen is welcome, but the large majority of who we serve is underserved, and there's a lot of lack of confidence with all kids, but especially those kids. And a lot of them, they do have those stigmas that they don't really know who to talk to or how to express themselves. But one thing that we did a lot of research about was how do you create a safe space to give kids, a comfort zone. So if they can come in and they can create art, or they can meet a volunteer, or they can play foosball or air hockey and just kind of hang out or strum on a guitar, they were able to like build down their walls, and then they were able to open up and they feel comfortable in a relevant atmosphere. And that really empowers them to be able to also to be able to be around adults that they see consistently are there. And they often hear, that person in my life promised that they'd be there for me this Saturday, and they were not there. And they show up at our teen center 4 or 5 times in a row, and they're like, that person is always there, and they're consistent. And now I can trust that adult. I could trust that volunteer. And that is where I think a lot of the stigma, tends to deteriorate a lot, and kids can tend to open up. But I guess the simple answer is just building trust. You have to be able to overcome that with a lot of young kids and encourage them that it's okay to be imperfect, because no matter what age, you're going to be imperfect. And you always have that stupid little thing on your shoulder that says that you're negative. But sometimes we're better at kicking that off of our shoulder. And we just have to teach kids how to do that so they can be empowered to do that in their present as well as their future lives.
Yeah, Randy, I really like that. I have to tell you, it was I was well into my 40s or 50s before I realized that the flaws that my parents had, the flaws that the adults around me had when I was a kid, probably were just carryovers from when they were kids. But when you
Yes.
talk about having a positive role model, um, right away I started thinking about Aaron Callahan, and I started thinking about the stories that you told me about your family and your parents, and the I want to say unconditional support. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but can you let everybody know a little bit about your story? We don't need to get much more into the 2 or 3 minutes of when this all started for you and how you were so fortunate with the adults that you had around you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as Randy said, I think when young people have trusted adults who show up unconditionally, it's a game changer. And I fully recognize that I had a unique experience and that not everybody has access to those types of adults. And so, just before my senior year of high school, I had my first manic episode, which led to future episodes and depression and eating disorder and self-injury, all the things that so many young people face. And so receiving a diagnosis such as bipolar disorder carries so much shame and so much stigma. And for young people, I hope that any young person who's struggling really can feel in their core that they are not the only one. And there are adults in their life who are just waiting to hear them out, to support them. My family fortunately was there for me, and something that was really significant was their consistent acknowledgement that I was still Erin. I was simply Erin who was navigating a medical condition, just like any other condition. And so I think it's important for any of us adults who are the helpers to still recognize that young people who are struggling are still the beautiful, authentic, strong, brave humans. But as adults, we've got to consistently show up and not only treat them as the expert in their own life, because they're the one going through it, but had I not had adults who didn't allow me to, kind of wallow and become victim to my diagnosis, I wouldn't be alive today. And so I'm just eternally grateful that I had that unique experience. And I obviously want that for all young people.
Yeah, and it isn't available for all young people, but I have to tell you, after what Randy was saying and actually conversations I've had with Dr. McCall, I realized there are other avenues out there, other ways to, get that. And Jason, when we're talking about that, um, I know that people probably look at you and think, wow, a 13-year NHL career. You have a great television, career with sports. You do a lot of podcasts and things like that, but how would you respond to a young kid who just doesn't seem to want to take the chance? So because he's too afraid to, he's worried that he's going to be not good enough or embarrassed. What would you say to them as far as that goes about what's more important, success or learning?
Well, you kind of said it there as, and you mentioned failure before, and it took me a while to realize that there's no such thing as failure. It's just learning. And it's how you choose to take that, if you want to call it obstacle and learn from it and apply it. So for me, I did it innately growing up. I seemed to respond really well naturally to adversity but I would kind of put myself in those situations and not feel comfortable unless I was adversity. I used to be told when I was playing that, my worst games is when I was really comfortable or played a couple good games in a row because I'd get really not arrogant, but I'd be like, oh, this is easy. I need to feel what it's like to struggle a little bit. And that's almost a negative in itself. But, I was able to learn as I went on in my career of how to stay in those moments. But yeah, for kids, it's just, when you're trying to talk to kids and it's just not to take those at failures. It's not that you're not good enough. I was talking to somebody the other day and they said something pretty cool. He was a renowned golf psychologist and he for you to want to be, let's say you're trying to be a top athlete or a top performer, that's a very small needle to thread. So for you to be mad at yourself that you didn't make it or you fell down or struggled or you failed, if you want to use that word, I mean, you're failing at chasing something that 1% of 1% of people get to. So you can't be so negative with yourself. You have to understand what reasons why you didn't make it and then apply those and then see if it's something that you still want to chase and strive for. But, I do think we live in a world of perfectionism now and a lot of kids feel like they need to be the best because it's all social media. It seems like everybody's doing great. And that comes back to our platform is we're trying to take the phone, which kids are glued to a lot of the times, and it's just kind of a negative. It's teaching them that they're not good enough, this and that, but showing them that, hey, listen, like you are good enough. You're you. You want to be the best version of you. That's the best version for everybody. And just to strive for that. Don't worry about anything else. Stay in your lane and run your race is the biggest thing. So
Yeah, I think it's so easy for somebody to think because a person's been successful that it's easy for them to understand and be humble. But I was actually sitting in my little sister's living room in Dubuque, Iowa, when Alex caught the great one as far as scoring, and I thought that Gretzky was so magnanimous and graceful about that. And if a person like that can understand that he isn't the best in that one area, it's still the best overall. Um, but that kind of brings me back to some ideas of how you would deal with different people, different kids when it comes to this. And Paula, what would your approach be to young people who are struggling with all the issues they have to deal with, not just today, because today is so much different than when we were growing up, but how do you deal with young people who are struggling right now?
Well, so that's a big question.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
there's
wanted
multiple
to give you
things.
the big ones.
If I could solve the world's problems, there's a couple different aspects to that. I think first of all, we need to empower our youth with their voices. So we need to encourage our youth to be able to stand up and speak up and to be engaged and to be active and to share their stories and to share them with each other and share them with the people around them. And then that's another piece where we as adults need to show up and we need to listen, and we need to offer that space and that presence. Now, when we're communicating with, more like a one-to-one type of level, I think it's just really important that we just recognize that our youth have things to share with us. We don't know all the answers. We know our experiences and what our life journeys have been, but that doesn't mean that we know anyone else's. And so we need to approach them with curiosity again. If they are struggling, we need to approach them with opportunities to share what their story is, to listen with validation. I hear you. Doesn't mean I'm trying to change you. I hear you. And to offer support and to give them some sense of opportunity and control. A lot of times our youth feel like they don't have a lot of control. Even like with our phones and stuff, just like that, they can be taken away. And that is their leash also to social supports, to music, to coping strategies, to things that they rely on in a positive way, as much as it has negative aspects as well. So it's important to give our youth opportunities for control. So whether that is in a large group setting where we're trying to just encourage them to share their voices and to listen to them and to come up with policy changes and ideas or clubs and things like that and help support that, or on a one-to-one basis where we just say, what do you need right now, rather than saying, I'm going to fix this for you.
Yeah, and you're right. Everyone struggles. Nobody knows what the other person's going through. Everybody has unique things they're going through, but often they result in, common feelings of I'm not good enough, or inadequacies, or lack of confidence. Now, you do have some people that are just lucky; they're born confident and they understand that their voice is going to be heard. But not everybody gets an opportunity to try the things I think they might want to try. And when I think about what you do, Randy, at the Alice Cooper sites, at the teen centers, I think often you're probably getting kids who might not have ever, gone out there and tried to do some of the things that they're doing. So I think I'd ask you this earlier, maybe it was before we started recording, but how do you let young people know out there in Arizona and Maricopa County, even beyond, what you guys are doing at the centers, and how they might be able to come out and benefit from it?
We go to schools a lot. We go into classrooms and offer guitar lessons or master dance classes, or we literally take a booth and hang out at lunch at school campuses for kids and just give them stickers and jam on guitars with them. We are also very proactive on social media and do a lot of social media ads, and we market a lot to youth and parents. And then we do a lot of promotions. We have partners like Taco Bell and Dutch Bros, and we might do things like having kids create a sticker for Dutch Bros, and they can submit that, and then they can create a sticker at our center and come check it out, and then they might win a free Dutch Bros card, or they might win an opportunity to, get like a year worth of Taco Bell or whatever the contest is. So there's a lot of different engagement that we try to just connect with kids in many different ways. The other way we do that is we do an open mic once a month, and we have a lot of kids want to perform at that because they can creatively express themselves in a positive atmosphere that's not a bar, and they're not going to be heckled. And we have a music competition once a year, which is 230 kids, and that's all music styles. And so it's kind of a D all the above. You just try a bunch of different things and see what works.
But I also have to ask you and bring this out. It's not always just performers. You have people that learn the technical side of making music, of recording music, and
We do. We have kids can learn video, filmmaking, photography, learning how to record. They can learn how to, run lights. We have all sorts of different opportunities, and some volunteers have literally taught kids how to change an oil change in their car in the parking lot, and that kid literally went to become to school to become a full-time mechanic as a result of a volunteer connecting with them. And the kid's like, I never heard of an oil change, what's that? And he was so fascinated with that, he actually wanted to go to school, so we helped him to apply for a scholarship, and now he's a full-time mechanic. So we help kids be elevated and find success any way we can.
yeah, I know that there's hundreds and not thousands of people out there always working with groups trying to make the world a better place. But every once in a while, I find it interesting that we do a lot of work with Steve Young's foundation, the Forever Young Foundation. He does great stuff, and all of us do the best we can. But every once in a while, when Steve steps up to the mic and talks about his issues with anxiety and the things that you would never expect in a person of that caliber, Hall of Fame football player. But I know Alice is involved somewhat, but his wife is really involved in the centers too. Can you tell me a little bit about getting her buy-in and driving some of the things that you do, because she is there to help?
Well, Alice and Cheryl are deeply involved in the center. They're touring worldwide in their full-time job. But when they're home, they're working with the kids directly. And Alice is doing psalm running classes, hanging out, just listening to music, encouraging kids. Alice's wife is a globally renowned dancer, as a lot of people know, and she offers dance classes. And she's actually checking in on kids all the time and making sure that if they're going through a struggle, they're lifting them up, they're talking to them on the road, they're making sure that their kids are safe. If they're homeless, they're connecting with people so they can have living situations. But yeah, the teen centers are they're very dear to their heart, and it's very important. And we have a great staff that has been around Alice and Cheryl for 20, 30 plus years that could be the boots on the ground for their daily vision.
I just love that. And, thank you for sharing. I Aaron, you and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago, like I said, and I learned a little bit more about Beneath the Brave. But what would you do if you were able to stand in front of 50, 100, 500, kids who obviously some of them are going to be struggling. We won't know what their struggles are, but they're going to be struggling. How would you present the situation you went through and encourage people, especially as an author? And by the way, towards the end of this, I'm going to give everybody a chance just to have some thoughts about what they're doing, and maybe a little commercial. And I'm going to let you talk about, I think you've got a book launch coming up, but tell us a little bit about what you would say to a 14-year-old girl who just seems a little bit lost.
Man, does that resonate? I mean, truly, I would tell that 14-year-old girl that it takes courage just to stand in her shoes. And you can be both strong and struggling. And we're all facing struggles no matter our age. But any young person that may be having a tough time, please know that there's nothing wrong with you. There is no shame around that. You are not broken. You don't need fixing. And so I would encourage any young person, an adult, but any young person to take off the brave face and to remove that shame that is the narrative that some of us say, well, if I tell a friend about this, I'm going to look stupid, or they're going to make fun of me, or I should just know how to get through this on my own. There is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in having a struggle. And when we're stuck in silence, that's where stigma thrives. And so any young person, just please talk to your peers, talk to the adults in your life, because people want to support you. They are there. And give yourself credit, because you are probably so much stronger than you ever give yourself credit for. And so no matter what a diagnosis is, it does not define you. It is not who you are. And it is not a defining factor in what you're capable of. You can do anything you want in this world.
Yeah, we've got four people on the webinar tonight who have had various levels of success, and quite a bit of success. And we've talked we've talked quite a bit about what you would just tell young people in general, or people that are coming up and you think they might need to have a positive message. But Paul, I want to Dr. McCall, I'm sorry, I want to ask you specifically, when you run into somebody who is already in crisis, what are the things that you first think to do, and what would you suggest to others if they run across people that are in crisis? Because I'm going to tell you right now, we've all had stories, and one of the hardest things to do is to know what to do if you're not equipped to handle somebody that's having a mental health crisis.
I mean, first of all, it's important to recognize that if you're in a crisis, you're not going to feel like you know what to do. That applies to all that's the point of that's what crisis does. It makes us feel helpless, it makes us feel confused, it makes us feel powerless. So you need to understand that anytime you're in a crisis, and that could be any sort of crisis, mental health, physical health, just what's happening in your backyard, any sort of crisis that's happening, you're going to feel helpless and powerless. That's what crisis does. That's okay. You don't have to know all the answers. You just need to know that that's where you are, and that the best thing to do is to get information and to figure out what to do next. So if someone is struggling and they're having a crisis, first of all, it's talk to me, let me know what's going on. Again, opening up that opportunity, opening up that conversation, and then listening and offering validation and support. So saying, I hear you and I'm here for you. I hear you and I'm here for you. That's what we have to communicate, and being present for that person. It's okay to bring up ask questions about anxiety, about depression. It's okay to say, are you thinking about suicide or hurting yourself in some other way? It's absolutely okay to ask those things. And if someone is really struggling with those things, it's communicating your ability to be present and supportive. It doesn't put a negative idea in their head by any means. It offers support and comfort. And then the other thing with crisis is to recognize you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know what to do. There's crisis lines and resources for a reason. And so it is okay if someone is really struggling to say, I'm here for you, I'm here for you. What can we do next? Again, offering opportunity for control, offering a next step. What is it that we can do right now? And they may or may not know, and it might be, I'm wondering if we should call a crisis line together. Is there one in particular that you would feel most comfortable calling? It's okay to call crisis lines. We have 988, which is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You have Teen Lifeline in Arizona. There's multiple different crisis lines that we can call. And the thing is that you don't have to be in an imminent 911 type of crisis to call these things. You can be with someone, both of you not quite sure what to do next, call a crisis line. And if that person gets up and leaves, you can still call that crisis line. So there are supports for a reason.
Paula, Aaron's book is Beneath the Brave, but I tell you, sometimes even getting to the brave is such a hard thing. The question I'm trying to, ask right now is there something that somebody could do if they're worried about somebody who they think might be teetering on crisis, or they think might be exhibiting behaviors that don't seem healthy or don't seem right? Is there, for lack of a better way, a person to arm themselves with tools so that when it happens, even though they don't have the mental health training that you have, they're able to, step up? I think a lot of people, I remember, driving down the road many years ago, and I saw, a person with a flat tire, and I thought I really should stop and help, but I don't know how to change a flat tire. By the way, that was a long time ago. But arming themselves in a way that gives them the ability to best handle it. What would you suggest to them?
So there's a few different ways to prepare yourself. There's lots of opportunities out there. There's lots of resources online. Our website has resources for support and tips on what to do if you're concerned about someone. You can go to other websites like afsp.org, which is the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. You can also do trainings. There's a training called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer. It is many places offer free. You can find QPR trainings for free virtually online. It's a 1-hour community train for anyone in the community, just have a better understanding of what to do in response to a crisis. What I would say though, absolutely, is if you are concerned about someone and the thing that's holding you back is, I don't know what to say, or I don't feel ready, or whatever, that's just giving more time for the concern to worsen. If you're concerned about someone, it's time to step up and say something. And it's a scary conversation, and it can also be a direct step into support. So you can open up that conversation with someone and just say, I've noticed. So that starts your conversation. I've noticed. And share what it is that you've noticed about that person in a non-judgmental, loving, supportive way. And just saying, I want to understand what's going on. I'm here for you. I care about you. I want to know what's going on. And then again, validation, support, and then asking them, what do you need from me? And what can we do to do the next step?
I love that. I've noticed. I love that. Jason, I'm gonna jump to you for just a second, because I remember when we started working with the NFL alumni in Arizona. Derek Kennard, good guy, good friend. Daryl Clack, Dallas Hickman, people like that. One of the things that I think that's so interesting is their willingness to step up and talk about issues that they're dealing with. And I remember many years ago, well, it wasn't that many years ago, when Terry Bradshaw first came out and talked about him struggling with depression. It was such a game changer as far as I was concerned. So using your platform, using your experience, using the things that you've gone through, what do you think is the most important thing for people who have been through something like this, especially those who might be in the public eye a lot, like yourself, to tell young people, even tell young people through a video message so that they can hear that everything's not lost just because they're having a bad day, week, or month?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, the common theme here tonight has really been just, you know, talking about it, and also, a lot of onus on adults and parents, but also just being able to give them a space to speak and talk about their day, and talk about what they're feeling. And because, when we kind of tested this out in our theory of voice to text journaling, we were shocked at, the depth in which 12, 13, 14-year-olds thought and emotionally. And, you kind of think and you forget a little bit about those times when you're younger, that you do think deeply and you feel deeply, and because you haven't yet gone out into the world, so to speak. So for us, it's really just getting kids to talk, and we have a breathwork coach on board, and he really talks about, moving emotion with sound, breath, and movement. And the sound part is really just your voice. And we like to start each journaling session with the kids with, what did I do well today? What can I improve on? What are some positive and negative moments from your day? And what are your stress levels, 1 to 10? What are you feeling? Just talk about it. And I feel like kids just understand more about their feelings than we give them credit for. And they're just, I don't want to say afraid, but they just don't think they are allowed to talk about it. So that's what we're trying to empower kids, and, give them the tools to speak and voice their emotions. And hopefully in doing that, that does help them cope with a lot of what they're going through, because it's, not easy growing up in today's world with all the technology. And we could say that back when, I was younger and coming up in the sport, it was harder because, we talked about our emotions less, but we had a lot less technology, and we were outside a lot more. And now it seems to be the phone and the computers and the iPad. So, and that bleeds more stress, in my opinion. And I see it on my own day to day. So, in all the studies that are coming out about phones and technology. So I just think, yeah, we're trying to turn that on its head, and allow technology to give kids a space to talk about what they're going through, and talk about their feelings, and cope with it. And we hopefully can help kids get there, and also recognize patterns that are, and notice things that are happening that otherwise, parents or coaches or teachers would miss.
Yeah, it's amazing when you talk about what kids are going through today, because I know that when I was growing up and they invented fire, we were all so afraid of it. But it's so
You're
much
not
more
that old.
complicated,
Come on, Norm.
so much more complicated now. But you know, but this brings me to a question for Aaron. Aaron, I know your story, and I know that your story is part of your book, and I know the things you do, but tell us a little bit about, because you told me how a lot of your friends reacted when you went through what you went through at 17, and how you think that might be changing with how young people react today. Because I do think even what 5, 7, 10 years later, uh, kids are becoming more savvy with understanding about the issues that are out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Dr. McCall, you mentioned this earlier, is that kids want to talk. Kids are sharing their experiences. Jason, they're talking about their feelings. It's often the adults who aren't holding space to listen or are stepping in to fix or solve. And at the time when I was struggling then, we definitely didn't talk about it. And I worked up every little ounce of courage I had in my body to tell friends about being hospitalized and what it was like to take medication, and how shamed I felt of that. And they were like, okay, bye. We'll see you at school." And I look at that with much kinder eyes today. We were kids. We didn't know. And so fortunately, we're in a place today where youth are just some of the most incredible allies to each other because they're having these conversations. They're making it safe to show up for their peers and saying, "Are you okay? What's going on? Talk to me." And so I think that's just such an important thing that adults who love and work with youth need to keep in mind is that, you know, the world is changing. Stigma is being reduced. It's often adults that have to keep up.
Yeah, other than the fact that you kept making your mom cry tears of joy when I was up there. I just thought it was such an uplifting experience. And but it reminds me of people getting their voice out there. Randy, tell me if I'm completely wrong here, but don't you have young people that do, like, I can't remember what it's called, slam poetry or something like that?
We do open mics and poetry slams and all sorts of different creative expression. We've done art exhibits, but yeah, the center is just this playground for kids just to have literally a blank canvas. And if they want to write a song, they can write a song. If they want to create art and they've expressed their feelings through that, we've done plays where kids learn about suicide prevention and anxiety and coping skills through actually writing a play. And then they can actually act in that play a week later. That's been really a cool outlet for them to actually learn from a direct counselor in a sense to be able to have a creative outlet to be able to talk about their feelings. So a lot of it is again just relatability as well. And if a kid walks into our building and they say, "Man, I don't know if I want to meet a bunch of kids right now. I deal a lot with anxiety," and then just being honest, and just saying, "Wow, I have anxiety too." And then they can build their walls down and go, "Gosh, you struggle with that as well." And then they start feeling comfortable that somebody else feels the way that they feel. And then all of a sudden, then they can start feeling more connected and trust you and say, "Okay, now I'm ready to start meeting a few other kids or a few other volunteers."
Yeah, I think that sharing something about yourself, whether you're a young person or whether you're a professional athlete or whether you're a doctor or an author, when you share something about yourself, or just a classmate or a colleague at work, when you share something about yourself, others are more likely than to open up about struggles they're having. So listen, we've got about let's see, 7 or 8 minutes left, and I wanted to do something. I want to give all of you an opportunity to basically tell me what's next for Semicolon, what's next for the teen center, what's next for FYP, and what's next for Beneath the Brave. So Dr. McCall, and I go back and forth because I know you as Paula, but
Paula's fine. That's
yeah,
my name too.
yeah. Tell me what's next for Semicolon, and what you see coming up in the future.
Well, Semicolon Society is about to turn 3 years old. As you know, my work in the community, it goes back much farther than that. But as a nonprofit, we'll be turning 3 years old on June 21st. So we are really we are feeling pretty defined and strong moving forward. We garnered a lot of support and movement very quickly. And so we are just continuing to go strong. We do a parent education series. We have our annual Suicide Prevention Week gathering and vigil coming up in September for Suicide Prevention Month, which includes resource fair information, activities, as well as a candlelight vigil to remember those that we've lost in a safe space, a safe, secure space where people can feel comfortable doing so. Events, things like that. So I just encourage people to look at connecting with us, semicolonsociety.org. We have resources and information. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We are always looking for people to connect with us. We have youth on our advisory council. We have youth volunteers. We have people of all ages, all backgrounds. We have a lot of mental health professionals. We have a lot of suicide loss survivors, suicide survivors themselves. And so everyone is there for a reason, and everyone has a story to share, and we always are welcoming people to come in and be a part of what we do.
I like that so much. The last couple of weeks, we've had several family members, parents for the most part, who lost their children. Their children completed suicide, and I can't think of anything that's more horrific to have to go through. But these three different sets of parents, they all turn things around to try to better the world and teach people lessons. So I really like that, Paul. I think that that's a fantastic way to arm people with the ability to help others. And, you know, I always tell people when it comes to suicide prevention and many other things, you rarely are able to find out the successes you've had. It's not like anybody's going to step up and say, I didn't do this because I had a positive word from Jason, or I didn't do this because I went to, you know, Randy's center and, you know, had a good day. So, I just think that's wonderful. Jason, FYP. By the way, what does FYP, because I know I've said it several times now, but FYP, the words stand for.
It stands for Find Your Play,
Okay.
because we're trying to help kids and anyone truly find your play. Because, you know, I played a game for 13 years and it took me 13 years to realize that it was a game and that's it. And you know, I try to take that into life, and every day is just a game and you're just trying to find your play and just play and enjoy life. And it's short. But yeah, that's kind of what FYP stands for. And, you know, right now we just launched our beta version with First Tee Phoenix, as well as we're about to launch with the JGAA, and we're just kind of looking to hopefully be in every school and every organization that's attached to youth golf. You know, we're starting with youth golf because Arizona, as you know, is a golf hotbed. And you know, our kind of, you know, we like to say that, you know, we're using sports as a Trojan horse to get in and really help kids in the mental side of things. And we're not trying to create the next Tiger Woods. We're trying to create the next, you know, best version of whatever kid is using that app. So, you know, golf is number one, and then we eventually want to get into every sport. And we built the app so it's very easily transferable to any kind of space, because the journaling and breathwork are the tools that you use. And the last piece, the third piece of our app, is a content. So it looks a lot like Instagram, but all the videos and the content that's on there is curated by us, and it's all content that we go out and get of people that have the best interest of kids. And it's basically professionals, mental health professionals, you know, psychologists, trainers, nutritionists, speaking directly to kids and giving them all the tips and tricks that they wish they had when they were kids. And just kind of a little bit of a gamification. So yeah.
So I have a question from Tina on one of the people watching tonight, and she wants to know how people can connect with you for the golf stuff.
Yeah, just reach out. I can send you our website, our landing page, fypathletics.com. And then you can also email me and I'll send you my email. It's just jdemers@fypathletics.com. And I'd love to chat with anybody. Yeah, we're really testing out. We're in the beta, and we're kind of we're going the partnership and sponsorship route, because we're giving it to kids for free, and hoping to help mitigate some costs for parents, because youth sports is, as I know, I was in hockey, and it's so expensive, and it's so expensive for parents now, and that financial burden falls on the kids, because parents don't know it, but when they're spending more and more on sports, they're naturally just subconsciously stressed. And I mean, Paul, I'm sure has seen this a million times. Aaron, you know this as well. It's you feel the energy from your parents. So, and again, and to cap all this off, meeting everybody here has been just truly an honor and a pleasure, and hope to see more of you guys around Phoenix. But it's been, all of your stories are incredible, and really kind of galvanizes me to kind of keep going and keep moving. So thanks for having me too, Norm. Appreciate it.
You know, Jason, I have to tell you, so many people thank me or thank Jeff Bear or others at Copa Health for, you know, putting the groups together. But I have to tell you, I am the most selfish person in the world. I am the most selfish person because I want everybody to succeed, because when I need them to be around. You know, so if I need somebody that, you know, wants to learn how to, you know, play the bass guitar, you know, I need Randy to be there. If I need somebody to, you know, understand a little bit more about how they can get a little help with in their mental health aspect of sports, I need Jason to be there. And when I need somebody to understand that you can do great things when you're coming from a place that you've already been through and struggled, I need Aaron to be there. So as far as that goes, Aaron, I'm going to jump to you, and then I'm going to jump up to Randy. But can you tell me about your event that's coming up? Or tell everybody about the event that's coming up.
Yes, it is free. It's open to the public. I just recently published my book, Beautifully Bipolar. It's ditching the shame with hope, humor, and hustle. And the mission is really to bring the community together, people of all ages, all backgrounds. We're going to celebrate mental health awareness. And I'm going to be sharing some of my story, and we're bringing the conversation to the forefront. And so it is going to be a really fun evening. It's May 30th from 7 to 9 p.m. over at Chicken and Pickle in Westgate. Like I said, the event is free. Folks can register through my website, which is beneaththebrave.com. It's going to be a fantastic time. I'll also mention for folks who are adults that work with youth, if you're looking for some of those specific tools and strategies that have been shared here on this call, I also offer youth mental health first aid courses, and those can be really, really powerful for anybody that works with youth. So you can find more information about that on the website as well.
Yeah, and we will have as much of this up on our resource page as possible, copahealth.org/resources. And I have to tell you, any place that has the confidence to call itself Chicken and Pickle. I gotta see this place, but so Randy, I'm gonna finish up with you, and I just want to know what's coming up. Other than the fact that you just opened up a new place out in Glendale, but what's coming up over the summer? I know you've got a lot of great things that happen over the summer because more kids are available, but tell us a little bit more about what's in your immediate future.
Well, we do an open mic once a month, and that anybody in the community, it doesn't matter what age you are, can attend, and it's free. The first Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m. at our Phoenix Center. We also do an open mic in Goodyear as well as our Mesa locations. So love for people to come out and just hang out and watch kids perform and just be there and just be a support system. And if anybody ever has a nonprofit or a social worker or needs a space for other teens and you don't really have a building, you could reach out to me and we could be a resource for you to allow the kids to creatively express themselves. But also if you need kind of a meeting place to kind of hang with your kids, so to speak, and need an opportunity, we'd love to discuss the possibility of that. They can reach me on email on our website or crank call me at the office at 602-522-9200. And we're happy to have a conversation. And on our website and Instagram page, we have events on a pretty regular basis. So you can check those out. But we've been privileged to partner and help out any way we can.
Do people still do crank calls?
I do once in a while. No, just kidding. I gave that habit up.
I'll
Okay.
prank call you later, Norm.
Okay, thank you.
You
And
can't
thank you
do
to-
it anymore because you can always know what someone's number is. It's no longer
Well-
anonymous. That's the problem.
That's all right. It's still fun. And Aaron,
The
you can call
beauty
me
of it
anytime
though,
you
now they know you're prank calling them too.
So thank you all. I just wanted to mention once again, next week, we're going to be talking about a subject that I think everybody on this panel probably is familiar with. I know my wife is, because sometimes a person's mental health is really affected when they have to be the caregiver, when they have to take care of somebody. My wife had to take care of me for months when I was kind of legally blind for a while. It's like 7 months last year, and had a lot of health issues, and I just kept thinking, I hope this doesn't push her over the edge because she could have done so much better than me anyway. But so next week, it's going to be Caring for the Caregiver. That's the last of our webinars for 2015 Mental Health Awareness Month, 31 Days of Healing. Go to copahealth.org/resources if you want to join us for that. Otherwise, reach out to me if you want to find out any more information about Jason, Aaron, Randy's group, or Dr. McCullough's Semicolon Society. Until then, everybody take care and thank you so much.